With over half the managed Android devices in Intune being deployed to frontline workers, having a workable and simple experience on shared devices is really important. So when Microsoft introduced a rebuild or redesign of the managed home screen application, I instantly wanted to take a look. Now in my previous experience, it didn't really meet the expectations, so I'm hoping to see changes which really make a difference. So let's get started. We'll have a look at the configuration, we'll look at some of the different and new features introduced, and then we'll look at the end user experience. So we first need to head into the Microsoft Intune Admin Center, and what we're going to do is we're going to go into groups. The reason we're going into groups is because you need a device group set up. If you haven't already got one, then go ahead and set up a new one. Now I've created one called Manage Home Screen Android Devices, and what I would just want to show you here is this group needs to have a dynamic membership rule associated to it, because as you enroll your devices, you want those devices to be allocated and assigned to this particular group. We're then going to use this group, this device group, to assign the applications and policies, etc. Now the reason we're doing this and we're allocating it to a device group, naturally these are shared devices, so rather than make it individual to specific users, we're making it specific to a device, so that device can be passed around and shared, and users can sign in if you're given that ability. So what I've got here is a dynamic rule where it's saying the enrollment profile, and we'll get to that in a minute, is equal to the Android home screen devices. So where a particular device is enrolled with that enrollment profile, the device will be added as a member to this group. So the next thing we want to do is go ahead and set up an enrollment token or enrollment process for our dedicated shared device. So if I go into devices, then select Android, we'll go into Android enrollment. Now hopefully you're familiar with the enrollment different profiles here, but because this is a shared device, we're going to go with the corporate owned dedicated devices, and we're going to create a profile. We'll give it a name, and then we're going to select the token type. So you've got two options here. You've got dedicated device and dedicated device with Microsoft Entra shared mode. Now the key difference with this really is with the Microsoft Entra shared mode, you're going to get the Microsoft Authenticator app deployed, and it puts the devices into shared mode. So as it says here, so the users can have an easier sign in or sign out experience when using apps with the integrated that are integrated with Azure AD authentication library. What this effectively is saying is that any applications that you deploy to the device that have that capability for the authentication, it's going to give that better experience. So it's going to use credentials from Azure AD to achieve that. So I'll go with that option, and then we can literally just give an expiration date of our token. Let's just give it, say, about a month or so, and then I'll hit the next and I can hit create. So next up in this process is really to go ahead and set the configuration up, and this is really the meat of this configuration and the deployment for shared devices here. So there's two ways we can do this. We can set up a device configuration policy, so we'll go ahead and do that. The devices Android, and we look at configuration profiles. And now I've already got one here, and for the purpose of this video I'm going to use this and go through it because there's a few settings that I've created. So rather than go from scratch, I'm going to show you what's already in there. So I go into that configuration policy, and if I just expand these down the bottom, you can see where the configuration is. So the system security, don't worry about that. It's just something I added. In terms of the configuration, I've set up it's a dedicated device. Okay, we need that because that's the process by which we assign to our dedicated device. So it's the enrollment profile, so we select that, and it's a kiosk mode, right? But because it's a shared, we don't want it a single app kiosk, we want it multi-app. So every user that is handed this device is going to have the ability to use multiple apps. Now you can deploy a number of applications down to the actual device. In actual fact, let's go into the edit here. you might see it differently. So open up the device experience option, and this gives you more detail, right? So it's saying the enrollment time is dedicated, you've got the options there. So, and then I want multi-app. The other options are obviously single if you want it kiosk type, or not configured at all. So this next setting is your custom app layout. Now I as you can see, I haven't set this, but if I go ahead and set that, you can see you can go through a number of grid options here. You can decide, you know, your columns and rows, and within each you can hit the plus and just choose which application what you want to add to your home screen. So this is effectively how you're designing the home screen of the user. If you go into the dots there, you can add a folder as well. Now I'm not going to enable that, so I'll get that switched off for the time being. Below that, we've got the applications. Now, regardless of how many applications you actually deploy down to your device, this is where you're going to choose which applications you actually want to be seen on the front screen. Now, we already looked at the custom app layout, which is one way of doing it, right? But another way of doing it is literally just by adding the applications that you have available in there, and I've chosen these 4 effectively. In combination with that, you have got this setting here which is about locked home screen. So if I enabled that, that's going to prevent users from moving things around on the screen, so or creating items on the home screen. There's other, wherever you see it not configured, that effectively is a setting that I've not, it was in there, it's not been configured by me. Now I did choose a dark theme rectangle. There are a few options in there, go through that for yourself. The app and folder icon size, I've gone for large. Actually I'm going to change that to extra large, just because I've got minimal applications, so I want them as visible as possible. Now this screen orientation, this is new. This is something that's been added with the latest redesign. It allows the end user obviously to change the orientation of that device. It may be you're running an app that's better in landscape mode, for example. So I've actually switched that on. I've gone to auto rotate. I've added the app notification badges. I've got the virtual home button. Now this is effectively the button that's on the main screen, or the first screen that you see, and it allows the user to go back to the home screen whenever they're, say, in an application, they want to go back to the home screen. There's different options there. I've chosen the floating option. I haven't added the ability for leaving kiosk mode, so these options are blank as well. I've gone with the defaults there, but I've also set on Bluetooth, so I've given the ability for the end user to enable and use Bluetooth, but also the flashlight, the volume on the actual device. They may need that, say they're watching a video, and quick access to device information. So all of these are options. You remember, you're kind of locking this device down, and now what you're doing is choosing the permissions and access to information and applications that you want to allow those end users to have access to. The next key option here is the sign-in screen. Now, if I keep that as non-configured, then I'm not going to give the ability for end users to log on with their credentials. Okay, so you're going to get a different experience, and I'll show you the difference in that. But for my purpose, I think it's better to allow users to log on. It gives them a personalized experience. And also for applications that have auto sign on, you can give them that ability as well. So it makes for a better user experience. The last section here is about automatically signing out of the manage home screen on shared device. So I've enabled it, and I've given some details in terms of number of seconds before that device kind of logs out, and it will prompt the user for signing out 60 seconds before that happens. And this again is new functionality. This is additional UI functionality that's been added with the redesign capability. So with that, I'll go out of that because I did already configure that. Before you go ahead and finish that for yourself, you will need to go in and add your included groups. Now, if you remember, we set up this manage home screen Android devices. I've got that in there. I've got another one in there which is for testing purposes, but for this video specifically, I'm adding that device group. So the device will be added to that group, and this policy, or profiles I should say, will be pushed down to the device. Now I mentioned the fact that we can do this two ways. So the other way in which we can achieve our policy and our settings is through an app configuration policy. So in this scenario, again, I've got one, Android shared device mode. Let's go into that. I can look at the properties, and this is where we see the detail. You got your standard basic information. Okay, so you're going to need to create, choose its managed devices. The platform is Android Enterprise, and because we want dedicated, it falls into this profile type, which is a group of different profile types there. And we're going to target, you're going to need to select the manage home screen, okay, as an application. So now if I go actually and edit these settings from a configuration settings point of view, this is where you're going to make certain decisions about, let's say there isn't a setting in the configuration, the device configuration profile, okay, and this is where you can choose. Now you can either go with the configuration designer or enter as JSON. Okay, by me clicking that, it's giving me the JSON alternative, but I can flip back to the designer. And there are certain things you're going to need. The first thing you're going to need to do is, particularly if you've deployed this before, if you're already in a scenario where you've deployed this managed home screen to your end users, in order to use the latest settings and redesign that Microsoft deployed here, you'll need to choose this enable updated user experience. So if I hit on the add, again, you're going to get options, okay? But you're going to need to use this. That's the first, enable updated user experience. Where is it here? There it is, it's down here. And that's the first thing you're going to do. So you select that, and once you select that, you're going to get the option to tick it. Okay, you're going to need to tick that to make it true, otherwise it's going to stay off. So do that first. The next settings we want to add are these top bar username styles. So if I show you quickly the change in the UI user interface, which one is that? Here we go. You can see here the top, this is the top bar. This is a resident top bar, so you want to choose that. It's giving you information, okay? If you're not using the logged in scenario, it's just going to give you the settings icon there. But if you are using the logged on scenario, once you're logged on, you can change this top bar for information to the user, for example, and your tenant, but you're also going to get this sign out icon as well, which allows you to sign out when you're handing the device over to another user. So let's flip back. So you've got the top bar username, username style, and I've chosen first name, last name, but you've got a few options there. You got the secondary element, okay, that's below the top identification or information there. You can go with different details depending on your scenario, and it does depend on whether you are providing the logged on experience or not. Top bar primary element, okay, we can go with also, this is what it will default. For example, it won't give you the name, but it will give you the tenant name, for example, if you're not using the logged on experience as well. Now, to complement those, you will need to add these other settings. The device serial number, by default, it enters, it already has a value in there, so you don't need to change that. And you've got a device name as well. So you need to add those in to fill in the details for the bar information that you're going to get. Now here's an example of enable rotation. Okay, in the device configuration, if you remember, we set this. Now you need to be aware of really not duplicating effort or duplicating configuration, because that can bring some issues. In this scenario it hasn't. I've tested it, I know it works, but really if you set it in your device configuration profile, you shouldn't really add it into this profile here. I have, like I say, and it still works. Now there are other options here. The remainder of those are, we've got show brightness slider. These are new, show brightness slider, show adaptive brightness. So those particular options are new, like I say, and they've been added as part of the redesign. The last setting down here is about connected apps. I haven't enabled that. That's allowing you to kind of share amongst your profiles that you have. I don't want that to happen, so I haven't actually configured that or set it to anything. Okay, so I'm not going to save that, but basically that's how I've set up my configuration. And now we're going to head into applications. So we want to talk about applications. So if you haven't already set your connection into the managed Google Play Store, what you need to do is go into devices, Android. Let's have a look at Android enrollment, and there's a prerequisites. Okay, so this will not be enabled, so just so you're aware, you go through the process. There's a step process to go through. You connect to your Google Play, and that's when you're going to bring in your applications. Assuming you've done that, you can just go through to applications, Android, and you'll get your list of applications. Now there are a number of applications obviously I'm deploying to my device, but the key application, the one on which we've configured through app configuration, is this manage home screen. Now the manage home screen, you'll notice if I go to the three dots at the end, I can't delete, and the reason is because when you initially set this up with your Google Play Store, the manage home screen will be default. It'll exist in there, but you'll get the version that at the time at which you set this up. If you've already set this up previously, then you will need to make sure you've got a specific version to receive the latest redesign, and that version is, if we go to the Microsoft Documents website, you'll see the version is manage app to version 22091169 or higher. Okay, and the important information here, we've been through the process of changing the app configuration policy and setting enable updated user experience. You saw that happening. The important key element really is IT admins will continue to be able to move to the updated experience by setting enable update user experience to true for 90 days. After 90 days, the app configuration will be removed. Okay, so take note of that, and that's really specific for if you've already deployed this before to your end users and your devices. So flipping back to the applications in Admin Center here, obviously you need to go through, select the applications that you want to deploy down to the device, all right, and assign that to your device group. Once the device has enrolled, the policies will be deployed and the applications will be deployed as well. And if they're surfaced through your design, the designer, as we went through in the configuration profile, then you'll be able to see them on the front screen. And depending on whether you set up to sign in or not, you'll also get that capability. One more thing before we actually see this working, and that is, depending on the device that you're deploying to, you can actually set a configuration, an additional configuration profile, which draws in the OEM config. So if you've got a Samsung, for example, this is going to improve the user experience because there are some permissions that come up on the first time it logs in or the first time the device enrolls, and they are annoying, right? So you want to get rid of that. So if you, depending on your device, you might want to create this or draw this config policy in, and it's available for a number of OEMs. Let's have a quick look. We've got configuration here, and I've got this Samsung OEM config. Now I just have to say, right, if I look at the properties, so if we look at the details here, it's pretty basic, but if I look at the edit, what it is I've got a NOC service plugin. Okay, that is linking to an application that you'd bring in through the Google Play Store. Now I haven't managed to get this working properly, so I'm still looking for the solution. So we're not going to see it in this example, but you need to create this configuration profile, and then if we go back into apps, I'll have a look in the Android here. I've got this NOC service plugin, all right, and I haven't assigned it at the moment, but that's because it wasn't working for my device. You might be able to get that working. I definitely would like feedback and information on that from anyone in the community. Right, to finish up here, you can see I've mirrored the Android device on the right here. I have enrolled it, and I'm not going to go through the experience here. And I've also been prompted for granting permissions. There were 4 of them and I had to do that. On the left hand side, you can see my device. It's showing with the Android Enterprise, and also it's Azure AD shared mode, which is the naming convention that it's given, but it is enrolled, it's corporate, it's compliant, etc. Now, if we just have a look at the new experience, on the top here, we've got this new bar. We're not logged in, so we don't get the log out icon. We do have the settings icon. I can click that, and you can see some of the settings that I configured for this device. I can look at device information as well. This is the new experience from the redesign. If I go back to the home screen, in my case, I do actually have the option to log on. So let's give that a go. Let's log on with the user. We hit the done there and then sign in. It's going to ask us for our password. And when we hit the sign in, if we've got MFA set up, it should prompt us for those details. So I'll put my code in here and verify. And hopefully that will take us into the home screen. And it does, so that's great. We've got our name at the top here, it's logged us in. We've now got a log out option as well, and we've still got the tenant name. We've got the applications that we designed for this screen. Remember, you can change those and the order, etc. So let's give it a go and go into the Edge browser. It will ask us for our account, so we'll set that up, hit the next, and I'm hoping that it's not going to ask us for a password. And there we go, it's logged us in. Hopefully we'll see our account appear at the top left any second now. And there we have it, we've got Nesta Wilkes. We do have the Outlook link on the browser here, so let's give that a go. Let's click that and see what it gives us. And because we're logged into the browser, it's taken us straight into Outlook. Now that's one way and one experience that you could make this simpler for your end users. But what we can do instead is go back and say, let's go into Outlook. It won't automatically log us in again. It's going to prompt us for our email, unfortunately. So we'll hit the continue there, and I'm hoping it will take us straight in now without a password. And it has, luckily it has. Now I'm not going to go through any more apps. You can work the rest out for yourself, but the key thing for me right now is I want to log out. Okay, I want to log out and see what the experience is. This might be the scenario a shift worker might be using, for example, and they're handing the device over to someone else. So we'll sign out, and I'll go back in and make sure, and using a different account this time, make sure that there's no details that have been cached. So we're going with a new user, Megan. We'll hit the done there and should be prompted for password and MFA. Password, sign in, go through MFA. Okay, now it's logged us on with Megan, and we've got the same scenario. So similar scenario for Nesta, our previous logon test account. Let's go into Edge. It did flash up, as you saw, the previous account, but it didn't allow us to do anything, and it was very quick. That is a slight glitch in my opinion, but it is now prompting us for our user. So we would actually have to log in with our user account and get the same experience. So we're not actually seeing details from the previous user. So let's go back, and again I'm going to log out. So sign out, and we're back to the home screen. So I think that's a great improvement actually. Yes, there was a slight glitch in switching between users, but generally I think the experience is quite seamless. It's now a simple interface and definitely got a better end user experience. So I would recommend that could be used. Now, one last thing I want to show is basically we do have an enhanced troubleshooting features that's been added. So what I need to do is I need to tap the back button 15 times, and I will get the access to the debug menus. There we have it. So with the updates, we got access to this debug menu, which basically includes pages for get help, exit kiosk mode, and about. And from the get help page, users are able to easily upload their logs. So this is another way in which the improvements have been made, and users will be able to view management resources as well. So this allows them to launch, say, adjustment management apps if needed. So thanks very much for watching. Hopefully you're impressed with the changes introduced to the redesign. I'm certainly going to use them going forward, but give it a go for yourself and let me know your feedback. Now, on a slightly different note, I'd really like to encourage you to subscribe to this channel. Amazingly, only about 13% of the people watching have gone ahead and subscribed. And it really helps me, encourages me to go and create more content and actually grow the channel. So if you can, please go ahead and subscribe, and I really appreciate it. Thanks very much.